Transportation Committee. We have a quorum. We have Rich Sena on the phone or on Zoom, and I know that Jonah Evans is wandering around someplace. I imagine he'll be back shortly. And we welcome back my distinguished co-chair from his luxurious vacation in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, I've been telling people I wish I could say it's good to be back, but it isn't.
First order of business is, opening remarks. Northern, anything? Bitsy?
No.
Nothing. Rankin? Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes for August the 2nd and August the 16th. Again, we thank Erica Rowe for her diligence and proficiency in getting both sets of minutes. We are now caught up. And if I didn't know better, I'd think that Erica can't wait to get off of that minute preparation duty. She doesn't want any backlog of them to have to deal with. So if you'll take a few minutes and look those over, and if anybody is so inclined, make a motion to approve them.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve both of them.
Both of them? Any objections to approving the minutes of August the 2nd and August the 16th, 2022? Hearing none, they are approved. All right, public comment. First opportunity for public comment. Please limit it for 3 minutes. Micah? No, excuse me. I got the right organization, just the wrong name. Sorry about
I
that.
associate with Micah. That's a good remembrance. Thank you.
He's younger than you, isn't he?
He thinks he is.
Oh.
It's all up here. All right. I'm Mike Lake, 12 Brant Road, out in Kendall County. I just wanted to take a couple minutes. I could take longer than that, but I just wanted to thank you all for your diligence and the level of effort you put into this, and especially your personal observations, your thoughts, your ideas, and then probably most of all for being able to chronicle it so well in a very public forum. The website, I think, is a very extremely useful tool. It's easy to access. I send people there all the time. If you want to have a public meeting and discuss public things in a transparent level, that's the way to do it. And so that's a compliment to all of you and, of course, your webmaster. The other thing I want to focus on is item number 6, which is the consideration of adding a transcript of the Vinnie presentation as an appendix if it's available. This reminds me that Dr. Vinnie obviously done a lot of work in the cave area. Texas Speleological Survey reminds us that there's 332 documented caves in the area, Kendall County alone. Comparable number in northern Bexar County. A lot of caves, a lot of consideration for myself from the Groundwater Conservation District about used to be water quantity, now it's water quality. So what I want to do is add an ask to that. If you can include Dr. Vinnie's comments, please include the comments in the form of resolution from not only the Cow Creek Groundwater Conservation District, also the neighboring district, the Trinity Glen Rose. Both of us authored resolutions that are on file. They're all posted on your website. Not a very good copy, but nonetheless, I have the original copies if you want them. So if I could make an ask that we include resolutions from the Cow Creek and the Trinity Glen Rose in anything that Dr. Vinnie can be exported onto, I would appreciate that. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. But again, compliments to the group for your effort so far. It's been a long process, and I'm looking forward to seeing the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan.
Milan, are those two resolutions, have they been presented to us early in this process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to come out in an August timeframe, yes. And then subsequently the president of the Trinity Glen Rose, Joe DeMille, made a presentation also, formal resolution presentation.
I just wanted to make sure that was what you were talking about.
Yes. Anything else? M-I-C-H-A-L-E-C. Not to be confused with vulgaris.
Let's see. Maxie Zinsmeister. You probably know how to spell his name. I mean, it's like.
Is that a German name? Italian.
Good afternoon. I finally took the time to view the YouTube video by Dr. George Vinny that has been the topic of a lot of conversation here. I have to say that I get it why people are so passionate about this. I absolutely agree that it must be transcribed and attached to the final report from this committee. So I never considered myself an environmentalist because, quite frankly, I was too busy working. Now that I have time to spend going to meetings and events such as these, I'm able to now see how badly our county is being exploited. With that in mind, I know there are some city and county representatives on this committee and would like to see some kind of legislation brought forward stating that every developer be required to watch this video and take a test after to ensure they understood what they just saw. I also hope that everyone here is aware of the bond issue the county would place on the ballot for this November. To preserve our environment and watersheds, it is imperative that we pass this bond in November. If you don't understand what it is about and what it will be used for, I would encourage you to reach out to your commissioner and chat with them. For those of you that lived in precincts 2 and 3, you will also be asked to vote on ESD 1. This is an additional tax burden that will be placed on us if it passes. The county bond is more important to us going forward if you're as concerned as I am about taxes you will be committing to. The county bond will help ensure we have water going forward. If you don't have water and your house catches fire, your house is going to burn to the ground if you have a volunteer fire department or paid firefighters. Okay? So again, if you have to choose wisely, choose the county bond, not the ESD. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Zinsmeister. Anyone else today? Lance Kyle?
I already mailed my comments, but here, I guess you're going to have to listen to them again. If you didn't read them, sorry. Lance Kyle, 226 Caskey Caverns Road. That's in the city's ETJ, just barely. I got 3 final thoughts for this committee. First of all, green space. That's definitely been a word that's definitely garnered a lot of attention. The city needs to stop targeting, speaking of green space, the city needs to stop targeting the remaining green space in southern Kendall County. More roads equal more impervious cover, which means more stormwater runoff and less aquifer recharge. This is why Dr. Venny's presentation needs to be attached to the final committee report. Nobody knows the geology and hydrogeology in Kendall County better than George Venny. He's been in most of the known caves in the county. There are at least 357 known caves in Kendall County. That may be only 1/3 of the total caves in this county. A lot of people have never let the TSS on their properties, survey their properties. Some, like Caskey Caverns, touch the aquifer 230 feet below the surface. Second item, HERF bypass. The city and certain members of this committee need to stop pretending that the HERF bypass road doesn't exist. And the public needs to know it exists. For example, when you stand at the corner of Main Street and River Road, 80% of the traffic turns south towards HERF Road. Why aren't these people using the HERF bypass? Because there's no signage. If the city wanted to get signage from the county or TxDOT, they could do it. They got AMPO and TxDOT to approve the Caskey Caverns Road project when they put their mind and resources to it. HERF already connects to the IH-10 access road. It just needs to be optimized. Same with the Esser-Herf River intersection. The city can do this, but it would rather play games. Number 3, Caskey Caverns Road. Speaking of the Caskey Caverns Road project, why does it have to stretch all the way to Buckskin Drive? That would eliminate all of the drainage ditches. And has TxDOT approved a roundabout part of the project? The latest AMPO description doesn't mention the roundabout. And does this project really need to cost $12 million? A traffic light at the Cascade Scenic Loop intersection, synchronized with the light under the interstate overpass, should fix the primary traffic stacking problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kyle. Ms. Rudd?
Thank you. Alex Rudd, La Concepcion Drive, Kendall County. I briefly want to add to my comment on Dr. George Venny's presentation. He mentions in engineering surveys The conventional methods are missing a lot of recharge features. I believe he mentioned up to 70% are missed. We need to get this changed. He mentioned he has methods that can improve this from 60 to 90% detection. How can we get our developers to do that? I believe this area deserves that extra attention, and I certainly know that no developer left to their own devices is going to want to make that extra effort. I really doubt it. I hate to be so cynical, but I've become cynical over the last 2 years. Now I'm going to go back to my original comment on the Bernie Mobility Master Plan. There's a pending public presentation. I'm trying to sort through this. My goal, and I've talked to you before, is to make sure there's advance notice, 2 weeks, that this is publicized in the newspaper, and we need more than one public presentation, and ideally it needs to be an open discussion with the public. After 3 years of hard work, your hard work, I would hate to see it all boiled down to a single public presentation with no notice, very few people there, and even worse, no chance for an open discourse. I don't think that that's fair to you or to us as a community. I've made multiple efforts to get contact from City Council, and I finally got one response. This council member said they were not aware of a thoroughfare plan presentation, and that the advisory committee would never recommend such a thing. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding. They might be thinking of the gateway. I'm not implying that this person's lying. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding. My questions were never answered, though. Can we give advance notice? How can we get that done? And how can we make sure there's more than one presentation? And we need to have an open discussion with the public, just like we did for the gateway. I'm not saying the gateway is going to be in that. I know you don't want it. But whatever they have, we need to be able to talk about it. It's important. One last thing. As far as I know, at the decision level, county residents do not have a representative at the decision level. We do at the recommendation level, and we appreciate that very much. But when push comes to shove, there is county property at stake. This became obvious again last night at a planning and zoning meeting where a piece of property was at issue with a development plan. And it was actually mentioned by Mr. Banwolf, that there is a thoroughfare plan. So I would like clarification on this, and ultimately just those three things: public notice and advance notice in the paper, and more than one chance, and we need to talk. Thank you.
That was 2 minutes and 57 seconds. You're getting really Any other comments before the meeting? All right, let's move on. Items 4, 5, and 6. We went through the major thoroughfare plan projects last meeting. My hope is that we can get through the TxDOT projects today. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. And then we will go through the local government projects. I would like to be able to get through with both of those. I think I might be a little bit optimistic in saying that we're going to do that, but I want to dangle a carrot out there. If we could get through with both of those and Dr. Vinnie's presentation's inclusion, I might be willing to consider skipping the meeting we have scheduled for next week, Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. So as you're formulating your responses and your deliberations on items 4 and 5, consider that, and hopefully we can get through. I'd like to go ahead and skip to item 6, since I think we've had a couple of speakers present comments related to Dr. Vinnie's presentation. We do not have it here, but I think everybody has saw the presentation. Ben Eldridge has done a great job of coordinating with Dr. Vinnie and actually did get the transcript. Dr. Vinnie has reviewed the transcript and edited it, and it's ready to be included if that's what we decide. So, Ben, you want to say anything about that?
Well, I guess the one thing I'll say is that we also talked about having some slides from Dr. Vinnie. I still need to source those to include that, but I don't think that's going to be anything controversial for us. I mean, I think we could just say,
right,
yeah, we'll adopt it. But, the other thing, too, is Rich Santa reached out to me right before the meeting and indicated he favors adoption. So he's not in the room, but I would hope that would count.
He's on Zoom.
Oh, he's on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to make a motion?
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we adopt the transcript of of Dr. Venny's presentation to the Transportation Planning Committee.
I'll second.
As an appendix.
That's the first chapter.
Okay.
I think it can be.
Y'all just plan on meeting through October.
Okay, I think that's probably acceptable to be an appendix. And anybody in the audience feel that that's a harsh treatment of his testimony? No.
Now that public comments skip Denise, she's got her hand up the whole time.
Oh, Denise.
Okay, thank you for calling that out. I apologize. We'll go back and get this as soon as we finish this.
So I think let's add it to the appendix.
Are there any objections to adding Dr. Vinny's presentation along with the slides to the appendices of the report?
No.
Hearing none, it will be added.
May I ask a question?
That was fast.
This is quickly.
Yeah, right.
So do we have the Cow Creek,
Apparently so, yeah.
We do.
do we have those resolutions in our
That's
document?
easy to see.
They're not in the report yet, but we do have, they're actually on the website, aren't they? Yeah. So we have them.
Can we add that to adding the Vinnie presentation in the appendix, but have those in the?
We have a motion from Bitsy to add the resolutions to Dr. Vinny's presentation that Cow Creek and
Trinity Glen
Trinity
Rose.
Groundwater.
Trinity
Any
Glen
objections to that?
Only a question, have we had other resolutions that have been presented to us that wouldn't be a part of those?
I don't
I
know.
don't think so
I don't-
either.
I
No,
don't
I just
believe
want
so.
to be sure.
I don't believe we
We
do.
don't want to leave anybody's resolutions
Right.
out if that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I don't know that we have had, but I know that we have those two.
Okay.
I don't remember any
I
others.
don't-
That doesn't mean much.
If anybody would remember, it would be Northern.
Okay.
Any objections? Okay, they will be added as well. Good point. Thanks, Bitsy. Okay,
You better quit while we're.
This is
Yeah.
unprecedented. Can we adjourn?
they weren't applauding us. They were killing mosquitoes. On the second page of your handout, you'll see a table there.
Don, I'm sorry, were we going back and taking?
Oh, yeah,
that
Ms.
up?
Deaver.
Yes, Ms. Deaver, thank you. Well, I just continue to, all right, Denise, Ms. Deaver, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for voting for the Vinnie presentation, and hopefully the PowerPoint PDF will be included in that. About additional resolutions, yeah, we have one more resolution sitting out there. Y'all probably aren't going to want to put that in the report, but I think you know where it is and where it came from.
We don't.
Whose is that?
Do you want to let us in on
Enlighten
it?
us.
Yeah, Kendall County Commissioners Court, November of 2018, Gateway, TxAC Gateway resolution.
Were you there?
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate the effort y'all are putting in. Thank you, Northern, too. Bye.
Thank you. Sorry for not seeing you there, Denise. Okay, now we can go back to the TxDOT projects. Second page, in the upper right-hand part of your sheet, it says projects by or with TxDOT. This is a collection of the projects that have been coming, that we've gathered from either the crowdsource source or from the committee or from the interim committee. And so what I've done is put them here with a brief description of which roadway it's on, what the work involves, and there may be some other comments. For example, project number 18, that really should be combined with, it's more or less the same thing as could be combined with project 22 as part of the crowdsource 22.
So I think 18 is more in front of the high school, 474, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Okay. But anyway, 184 is, I guess that is in a different project. But Anyway, these are here. These are projects that TxDOT may have on their work program already, or projects that somebody has suggested be put on their work program. And so what I'd like to do is go through here and first say, yes, we want to make sure we include all of these. Our decision about whether we want to call them long-range or short-range projects is really pretty irrelevant. TxDOT's going to do these if they're going to do them whenever they want to do them. We can influence that a little bit by, conversation and maybe kicking a little money in. But basically, they're going to do it when they're going to do it. So let's go down through them one at a time. First project is Blanco. Blanco and Bentwood, and 474 and Esser. Those are two intersections that are right there on 474 in front of the high school, I believe. Is that your understanding? Mm-hmm. And there's been a suggestion to put roundabouts at those locations.
That would be a good place, and it fits.
How do you handle the kids?
How do they handle the kids?
Yeah,
Well, they
that's a
drive
huge
their car
intersection
around
for
the
the high
roundabout.
schoolers.
Huh?
That's a huge intersection for pedestrians coming out of the high school or going on their cross-country runs.
I think there's lots of ways roundabouts are configured that make them perfectly safe for pedestrians. I do think that the important thing is that it's classified as a long-term one, because I think we've had this discussion before and agreed that that's not the first one we want to have installed in the town, that we want to have some simpler ones in other places installed first to prove the concept and give people some training before we throw it into like a big, complicated, busy intersection. But I think that at least the studies I've read have been pretty favorable for pedestrians as far as safety compared to four-way stoplights.
The explanation on that one is that it reduces the amount of complexity to navigate an intersection, because literally they just have to look left and right. They don't also have to look over their shoulder, and they don't have to look at the left turn lane from traffic, head-on traffic.
I'm fine with them. I also see, too, that 18 and 22 and 184 are all kind of connected together. And as I recall in our project subcommittee, we talked about making those links to make a smooth, fast route around the city away from Main Street.
I think that's what Northern's.
Yeah, I
graphic is
apologize,
showing.
I can't get it on your screens, but I have it behind you. One of the other suggestions was to create a Main Street bypass by replacing stop signs, I got to fix that, and traffic signals with roundabouts. And so that is how I created this draft recommendation. And you can see the roundabouts at, I believe, all of these intersections. So I actually had combined 17 and 18.
The only argument I would make for not including those right now, it's a good to plan for it, but I believe the ones on 474 would be TxDOT projects, whereas the ones on Adler and maybe the one Adler and Plant would be a city or county project, probably
The rest
city,
would all be TxDOT.
and the other would be TxDOT. So, trying to combine those sometimes gets a little
Okay, so
challenging.
pull out the Adler one.
You're challenging because the streets don't line up. Adler doesn't line up from east of Plant to west of Plant.
The other comment that I would make is similar to the comments that are on item number 22, because every single one of these would require right-of-way.
Right.
So is that statement there of negotiating right-of-way purchase, is that something you want to put on every one of them? Pretty much every one on this page, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you did it at Plant and Adler, you really need right of way because they don't line up.
The other comment that comes to mind is apologize for my ignorance on this, but I know that there's a bond related to Adler Road widening or improvements, and if that doesn't include this and they go in and spend a bunch of new money expanding the road, and I don't know what'll happen to those intersections, but seems like it'd make a lot of sense to coordinate in some way with whatever effort is currently happening.
Yeah, I don't know that the Adler Road going to 3 lanes incorporates a roundabout.
So the current city bond has a 3-lane configuration for all of Adler from 5 Points to Adler.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have roundabouts at the ends. It just has slightly improved intersections at the ends.
There is a technique for transitioning out the center turn lane and transitioning to a modern roundabout.
Correct.
So I don't know that it would be terribly problematic to replace short sections here with a modern roundabout.
Is that doable? I mean, can you guys enter that in, or?
Goes back to my statement, it's all right away. There's many landowners that we're going to have to require right away to do that project.
Okay, 2 options. We can do these individually, or we can do them as a group. I think individually, the recommendations can always be combined later by the entity that does them. So my recommendation would be that we approve these individually if we're going to approve them.
We're not going to get anything, or get it all.
Okay. Anybody object to including number 17, roundabout at Blanco Bentwood / Esser and 474?
Nope.
Okay. That's in. Do you want it to be a long or short-term project?
I recommend long-term, given that or at least putting a note in there that we would like there to be other roundabouts in the town first, before that one happens.
I agree. You need to get some roundabout in place that works great before you start putting the rest of these in.
Okay.
Which is what's been described as Project 18.
That's true.
Well, let's just say 18 stands by itself, which is 474 and Adler just up the road.
I'm for that one.
Okay.
I think there was a second part of that. If in fact we couldn't get it as a short-term project, we would at least put in a kind of a dummy lane.
Free right turn.
Well, and turning off of Adler onto 474 going
Right.
to the left.
Oh, the left turn.
Yeah, because that lane gets backed up consistently, especially during the busy times of school.
Turning left onto Adler?
Turning left onto 474.
Okay.
You don't have a way that you can stage yourself.
Well, that would be part of the project that is in the bond issue right now. If there's a left turn lane on Adler.
No, off of Adler onto 474.
She's talking about when you turn left off Adler on the 474.
Right.
They need to have a center refuge lane for a ways where you can blend in to the northbound lane.
And you don't have to wait for both lanes to be clear. You can jump over there and wait your turn, but you're
I see.
not blocking traffic.
So that would be within the confines of 474.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know the current bond project is trying to keep any interaction with TxDOT as simple as can be. So we are making the bookends very simple for minimal TxDOT delays and time period. So we're trying to improve Adler and do simple work on it for the bond. But that's definitely something, again, we talk about short-term, long-term, something that we could do, get the Adler road itself and then come back and fix the intersections.
Yeah, because it goes back to the same things that we've been talking about. You give that road 3 good lanes and sidewalks and so forth, and then you come down to a tight intersection. And you really haven't done anything yet until you get those intersections changed.
Okay. So, any objection to including number 18?
No.
And is the desire that that be a short or long-term project?
I'd say short.
Any objections to short? Okay. Next project is project 22, which is SH 46 and Esser. This is the project that we have talked about at length, about what to do there. And, you know, some people would call it River Road and Herf Road.
No, number 22 is Main Street, School Street, and Adler. It's on the north side of town.
Well, we have two number 22s.
One is the
list.
committee sourced and one is the
Right.
crowd sourced.
So this one is the high water emergency lane, is that correct?
This
That's
is
what
the
I
committee
understand
sourced
it to
one,
be.
right?
Yeah.
Which is number,
I think this was the one that John Kite proposed as a little extension, kind of a high water route.
Okay, that's,
That connection right there.
yeah.
So one statement to add is there's a 15-acre parcel that most of that red line is on that the city purchased last week.
The city purchased it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Can we have some right of way?
What
It's
is
all
it-
right
What are
away.
we using it for?
Did you, were there
Connection Park, what are you going
any
to?
restrictions on the use of that?
Well, it has a life estate for the lady that's living on it, so
Okay.
we don't know how soon we'll be able to use the property yet.
Well, congratulations. I would say that's an excellent purchase.
So yes, it's 15 acres, about 9 or 10 of it's in the floodplain, and so it's a floodplain protection.
You know, it was what I suggested, going from 46, looping up, going on to Esser Road north of the floodplain. But it looks like they've taken care of that.
Since y'all done that, would it be appropriate if we defer action on this until you all have had a chance to look at that in a little bit more detail? And you could come back to us with how that might fit into that whole intersection?
Yes, the big question we have is, it's our property, but we don't know, are we going to be able to use it for
understand.
2 years or 10 years or 15 years? Hopefully, she lives there as long as she can, so hopefully.
Right.
But yeah, we don't know how soon we'd be able to use it for anything else.
Okay. Well, I don't want to waste a bunch of our time talking about something when there may be a real good solution, and then the question is just whether it's long or short term.
Yeah.
Are y'all okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do that.
so we're waiting on this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to the 22 crowdsource, which is Main, School, and Adler, otherwise known as, I think, 5 Points. And that was a roundabout. I think everybody's on board with that.
Sure.
Correct?
Yep.
Well, but
We are.
there could be other ways rather than a roundabout. There, and TxDOT has indicated they're not interested in a roundabout.
I don't care.
So there's other ways to do it. There's several of them.
But you could live with it as being a roundabout in our, and if it didn't turn out to be, then that'd be a fallback position.
So I know the city, we have 10 or 11 different schematics for this intersection, and we have some that we kind of call short-term, and we have a roundabout that we have kind of as a long-term, is just what we're calling, but you guys can call it however you want. But yes, there's something, we've had many conversations with TxDOT about trying to do a roundabout there.
Okay. Would you say that they're just adamantly opposed to it, or they just are opposed to it right now?
They have a handful of concerns, environmental concerns, right-of-way acquisition concerns as part of that. But the other part that they're somewhat torn with is just traffic projections. So we've done some projections on the growth rate of Bernie. Eventually, you get to a point that even roundabouts don't work traffic volume-wise, that you can exceed the capacity of a roundabout. And so that's just a matter of, is that 10 years, 20 years, that intersection could exceed the capacity of a roundabout. Then that's the other part TxDOT is curious about.
Well, how about that the recommendation would be to install a roundabout and or a roundabout or alternative innovative intersection?
Sounds good.
I would also advocate that be placed as a short-term project. I know that there's some short-term fixes that have been proposed. It feels like we should just move this forward as fast as we can.
I agree.
Okay. Before you write a new narrative, I will tell you, I believe the narrative that is currently on there is from the interim report. I'm not sure if you just want to edit that to reflect what you just said.
We can. Well, just remind me it needs to be edited.
Okay.
Okay. 25 is the crowdsourced Main and Herf. This is at a free right turn from Main Street northward to Herf. And that was proposed as an interim action if the roundabout at that location is a long-term action.
Makes sense to me.
It does.
Okay.
And this one, I believe, if you guys want to single it out, I know we've said it multiple times that that one seems to be a good one to start out the experiment of roundabouts in Bernie. We'll need that language.
Okay.
Because we don't have that in there right now.
Okay, 46, Main Street and River Road. This is at the bridge. Install a roundabout, I believe, in a prior study by TxDOT that will go unnamed. There was a roundabout in there, right, Steve?
This is the one that was
There was.
Yes.
over the
I've
river.
seen the roundabout design
Remember?
there, which is all elevated. The other thing we could do as a very short term at that intersection is to restrict parking for a block north, and you can have 2 through lanes, a left turn lane, and 2 northbound lanes. That can be done just with paint, and that would solve that problem for a good while.
Well, I like that concept. Jeff, what's you suggesting we pull back the parking on Main?
So yes, so the key intersection or the key turning movement that's slowing down that intersection is the southbound left turners. But right now, there's not a turn lane, a dedicated turn lane. Looking at the pavement and curb widths, yes, we can fit, go redo striping and fit a turn lane in at that location. We'll lose about 9 or 10 parking spots.
Yeah,
along Main Street.
and you do have to rebuild the curb return.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
Worth
that would
exploring.
sure help the movement of that intersection, because it's going to be a long time before you ever build a roundabout.
Mm-hmm. You traverse that all the time, don't you?
Daily.
Wouldn't that work?
Okay, what's your preference?
In my notes, I actually had this as include in the Main Street package. So do I need to create a page like this specifically for this project? Or would you like to include it in the Main Street narrative?
Why don't we just, we'll pay it in a comment that it could be included in the Main Street package.
And that would make that a short term. wouldn't
Yeah. Make what is a short term, Dell?
Well, we were talking about the option of restriping and redoing curb
Right.
to help improvement. Would that be a separate project that would be a short-term project included in the Main Street one?
I would
assuming,
think so.
just for clarity.
Yeah, that would be a very short term.
Yeah, I think that's short, but it's an anticipation of maybe
Right.
long-term a roundabout coming
Right.
in.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
right.
roundabout would be the long term.
Yeah.
So just
Right.
make the intersection itself a project with a short-term and a long-term
Right.
ideas, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good there. Okay, next one is 56. We're I-10 westbound frontage road and US 87 business. This is out there on the north side of town where they just put up yellow flashing lights. There's a confusing intersection there where everything's coming together. I do think that it needs to be addressed pretty quickly.
I don't understand why TxDOT didn't create a intersection, right angle intersection.
I understand, John. I don't either. I think they need to.
They need to,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that should be a short-term project. It needs to be done. Any objection? Anybody object to that? Okay.
Nope.
Item 62, SH 46 West, Interstate 10 to the county line. This is SH 46 west of town. The recommendation is to widen it to 4 travel lanes with a center left turn lane. I would also tell you that farther down, Project 130 is a particular location within those limits. But I do think that is going to be an important project. It's not on TxDOT's radar right now.
I have a question about this one. From our previous discussions, at least I can remember, we didn't know if it needed to be 4 lanes or just widen with the center lane. So I'll need direction.
I will say that
Which of those we want to say.
what I've read is that the difference in capacity from a 3-lane to a 4-lane is about 10% more capacity going from a 3-lane to a 4-lane road. So it
depends on the turn volume, so if you have a lot
I'm sure it's exactly 10%. No, here's the traffic engineer. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure there's lots of, yeah. So
Going out to the county line, you've got quite a bit of turning movements. So that's where your 3 lanes would come in. And looking at the topography out there, it'd be hard to get 4 lanes and shoulders.
that's what I was thinking.
So if you had the 3 lanes, you could do that relatively easy, and you'd accommodate the turning movements.
Yeah. That was my thought as well. I mean, there's so much topography out there and windy hills that you're going to be dynamiting mountainsides and doing a whole lot of earth moving in order to make that thing 4 lanes.
Well, I think the reality is the recommendation, I think, at its core is we need to improve it because there's a lot of wrecks on that. And TxDOT will do the traffic studies needed to determine whether it's 3 lanes or 4 lanes.
Sure. Can we put a note in there that says widen to 3 or 4 lanes?
I think that's perfect.
I just have widen from Deep Hollow Road to Bernie, construct dedicated turning lane into Tapatio Springs. That was from 144, or no, that was another one.
That's kind of that's what 130 is.
That one.
Was that Deep Hollow?
I think there's a need at more than just Deep Hollow for that turn lane, though.
No, it
That
is.
center turn lane.
Oh, I agree.
The speed people are driving and their need to turn left is frequent. It's going to
Yeah.
get more frequent.
And there's several driveways that come in there and out.
Well, it's dangerous there. You come over the top of that hill,
Mhm.
and people are turning left. They need the 3 lanes in that area.
Yeah,
So it needs shoulders as well.
I think you ought to just amend it to 3 lanes with a center turn lane and make that the recommendation.
Yeah, and I know there's another option is you've all seen 3-lane roads where when you're going up the hill, it becomes 2 lanes for the uphill traffic, so you can pass slow vehicles. So it becomes 2 lanes for one direction and 1 lane for the other direction, and it shifts back and forth as needed.
Yeah.
So it's not just a center turn lane the whole time, even when there's no driveways to turn into and stuff. It actually varies, so there might be.
That on 46 going east,
Super two.
passing lanes,
Mhm.
you got
Yeah, what's
three,
that?
you got 3 lanes, but you got two.
Super
and then
two?
one, and
Okay.
then 2 and then 1.
Super 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got several amendments to that in the narrative. Basic recommendation is widen to 3 or 4 travel lanes with a center left turn lane throughout. And we'll note that that can be coupled with 130, and 130 can be coupled with 62.
Well, you may want to add at certain intersections, a right turn deceleration lane. So you're not turning out of the through lane, you're turning off of
Right.
a separate protected lane.
Okay, would y'all consider that short or long term?
Short. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be long term.
The right turn stuff they could do now, but what you're talking about, the whole area is a long term. Because there's right away involved.
Okay. Number 72, this is 1376 and FN 473, south of Sisterdale to the county line. This is going north from Sisterdale. That's a really narrow road. It has no shoulders. It is actually currently part of the Alamo Regional Rural Planning Organization's Transportation Improvement Plan for fiscal year 2024. So I think it should be a short term.
Yeah.
Project 84 is State Highway 27 in Comfort. This is provide traffic calming, provide parking and pedestrian amenities. This is also part of their 2024 plan, Gary?
Yes.
So I think we would put that in as short.
This is the one that may need narrative help, because we talked about back and forth, about the recommendations of a roundabout there.
Right.
So right now, it is reconfigure the intersection to a roundabout to slow eastbound 27 traffic and simplify the traffic patterns at this confusing and dangerous intersection. That's our current narrative. Not sure if you want to say something else.
Is that what was in the interim committee?
Interim report.
Okay.
I can see, I want to say there was more.
I thought there was more in the
Okay.
interim report.
I can pull that over and use it for the narrative.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've also been aware of discussion in Comfort that's, I guess, tangential to this, but, the idea of possibly retiring 27 as it goes through that downtown Comfort, and instead having 27 as it comes off I-10 run straight up into 473 and then running around. To me, it sounds like a really good idea to make Comfort more livable for the community, more more friendly for patrons of businesses. So, do you want us to, or should we include that suggestion in this?
As a matter of fact, Gary Louie is heading up a committee that is having that dialogue, so I'll defer to Gary on what.
Well, I don't want to confuse our ultimate report with, every project will be an evolving project. And I don't want to get ahead of what TxDOT is considering.
I just was offering to strengthen your hand if
No, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it, but I'm not sure, other than just having that content in the report to fall back on. We're quite honest, I just feel we're ahead of the curve on that, so whatever Don thinks.
So you were saying that it was going to bypass the...
I think we're pretty far out front. In fact, actually, TxDOT mentioned that they have more right-of-way on 473 than they do on Highway 27.
If you, Don, the parallel component of 473 to 27, where I have a hard time reading the map right here, but 27 runs just south and through the retail area, and 473 kind of bypasses it. And the discussion is consideration of converting that 27 to 473 and
So the idea is
encourage the traffic.
Highway 87 just go up to 473, and then people bypass come along 473, and that way this section 27 gets retired.
Right.
Well,
As state highway, so that it's calmer traffic. Let's put it that way.
but the only question I have is how do you get, I can understand moving up to 473, but how do you get from 10 to 473 on the bridge?
By hopping on 87, or taking a left on 87.
What, from 10 to 473, where, John?
Right there.
Well, you can either come down from I-10 and 87, or most people come in across the old river bridge and take a left on 473. I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into that decision.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to make it I would prefer that we not make that part of this recommendation.
Recommend to study it further. Recommend to study it further. Is that how that's done?
I've mentioned to some people that they might not run their block in, and I'm afraid I would be guilty of the same thing.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. So are we done with 84?
What do we do with it?
Well, I think we were going to add a narrative coming out of the interim committee report that had to do with traffic calming and pedestrian amenities, but I don't have that handy. But it would be a short-term project because it's in TxDOT's schedule to be done in 2024. Bless you. Okay, Project 96. Interstate 10 from RM 473 to US 87. This is adding one-way frontage roads along Interstate 10 from 473 up to I-10.
Up to 87.
Up to 87.
This is in Comfort, right?
Yes,
This
it
is a
is.
companion to
Well, it's
84, more or less?
No.
No.
the
Different
arrows northern would stop at 473.
Right here? Okay.
Yeah. But basically what that would do is open up some traffic up there by Lowe's Truck Stop. I mean, some property. There are no access roads there. And so it's,
Was this also to give access off 473 direct into I-10?
right, and not have to
Okay.
go through this residential area here.
Okay. And that way there, we would not have to build a bridge over the Guadalupe for
Right.
access roads. Gotcha.
So
Or
this would be
what is that?
necessary before you could omit 27.
No.
No, they're really separate projects.
Okay.
And, I mean, I'd say this is a long-term project. There's no congestion there to speak of at this point, and the growth projections on 473 are not that huge, but it would be something good for the community as it develops. Next one is 103. This is at 1376 and North School Street. This is where School Street comes out to 1376 or Sisterdale Road, and there was a recommendation for a roundabout there and add illumination.
I believe we dropped the roundabout.
We did what?
And just went to, now I can't find it.
Just illuminated it?
Yes, dark skies.
It needs illumination.
It does. It's hard to see. Well, that could be a short-term project.
It's on here. You imagine a project sheet that says that.
I'm sorry, where School Street hits 1376, is this the Sisterdale cutoff? Is that what we're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you caught up, Northern?
Yeah, I can't find it, but I know I created it. It's there somewhere.
You ready to go to 130?
Yep.
130 we coupled with 62.
Was there a visibility issue at Deep Hollow?
I think there must be. I don't know the road that well.
I don't either, but it seems like there is. But that is a cut from Tapatio and John's over. And I know the school buses take that cut on occasion.
And frequently, people use that to avoid I-10, and so people are using it as a back door. I know there has been fatalities at that intersection in the past, so just a common accident location.
What is the visibility issue or what's creating the accidents?
There's, from memory, there's horizontal and vertical. Like if you're driving westbound, you come around the curve and you're going down to that intersection, so there's just not a lot of visibility from memory.
This is the area I was talking about, that you come over the top of the hill and somebody's trying to turn in to there's two subdivisions on both sides. So what they really need on both of them is right turn deceleration lanes, so they can get off the road and slow down and turn. And it wouldn't hurt to put a center turn lane for the left people. And that goes also from further to the east, where you go into Tapatio. The same thing is there. You're going down a steep hill trying to slow down and stop and turn right when they run over you.
Are we good on 130?
Yeah.
Okay, 144 Main Street and Herf. Install a roundabout as a short-term project.
Yeah.
That is coupled with Project 25.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
145.
Is it worth putting a note about our recommendation is that this might be a good place for one of the first major roundabout locations?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're talking about a roundabout at Herf Road and Christus,
Yeah, that's the next one.
you need to do both of them, because if you do one without the other, it causes backup and they don't work.
Okay, so we couple 144 and 145?
You got a couple of them have a corridor.
You would want them combined into one project?
Well, I guess it'd be one.
Correct.
Funding wise, I don't know, but yeah, it ought to be one.
Okay.
So it functions correctly.
Y'all would like those short or long? Hearing no objections, it's gone. Okay, 149. This is an interim committee recommendation to install an eastbound exit to Joshua Springs Park. I think at one time that had been a short-term project, but with the installation of the signs on the I-10 showing how to get to Joshua Springs.
Now, it's two different things you're talking about. This one, 149, is to widen the bridge over Little Joshua.
Two 149s.
Oh, 149, the interim committee is just the exit. I think we separated them.
There's two 149s.
I combined them again.
Okay, you're talking about, okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the first 149.
First 149.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Joshua Springs Park.
I mean, that's gonna be a long time.
Yeah.
I've looked at that, I don't know where the ramp was.
I'm comfortable eliminating it. I mean, TxDOT, it took us a year to get the signs on I-10 installed at the welfare exit, so and everybody was happy with each other. So I think, I would suggest we just scratch that. There is no congestion issue, mobility issue.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I don't know where you put it.
Okay, let's just scratch 149.
The interim committee one.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm kind of questioning whether it was the crowdsourced one.
The crowdsourced one, I believe we need to put in. That's the widening of the bridge over the Little Joshua to facilitate the truck movements.
See, I thought that came from the interim one.
It did.
Okay.
The trucks can't make the turn.
Right.
It's snag.
Are y'all good with that?
We're good.
Yep.
Okay, going to 152 Blanco Road. Reconfigures 2 lanes, center left turn lane, and bike lanes.
I thought they discontinued that.
Yeah,
City opted not to pursue it.
well, that would be my comment is TxDOT's current administration's no longer allowing road diets, so it would be wait till TxDOT would allow it in the future.
Well, but could we recommend it anyways?
Yes.
Yeah.
And make it a long-term project.
Yeah, when TxDOT allows it, yeah.
I mean, I would put what we want in here, and I mean, I think the timing is more, I mean, I think it's appropriate to do it today. So I would encourage us to put it in as a short-term project, even if TxDOT is going to say no.
All right, what's the preference here, short or long?
Short-term. Short.
Anybody object to short? Okay, short.
And I'm sorry, going back one to the bridge over Little Joshua,
Yeah,
was that a short or long?
short.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember the council.
Yeah.
It was one of Adler.
Okay, 163,
It's done this.
Interstate 10 westbound frontage road at Ranger Creek. This is where we have that funky intersection as you come exit to get to Ranger Creek, and it's got a little loop-de-loop there and a left turn. And so I think this was, John, you wrote up the narrative on this?
Deal on that. I think that ought to be a short term because they've gone out as far as John's Road now. So why not go just a little bit further and have frontage roads all the way?
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what we discussed in the meeting, and it changed to the frontage roads. That would fix.
One-way frontage roads?
Yeah.
If you want the one-way, it'd fix it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because once you get up there, that's the same project we just talked about on North Main up there at 1376. So once you get to that point, you've got frontage roads from there on to Comfort.
Mhm.
So I think this ought to be a short term to get everything operating.
Okay. All right, the last one of these individual projects is 289, State Highway 46 at Pleasant Valley. 209, excuse me. I think we've had several accidents at that location.
Yeah, that's safety improvement.
It needs an
what is-
acceleration lane,
What's recommended?
and deceleration.
That's where left turn and right turn lanes need to be.
I personally agree with that, but, it's my neighborhood. I pull out there all the time, and it is sketchy going either direction.
That's where Brother Milan's.
I think it's a legit safety consideration.
So is that short or long?
Short. Okay, now, there were a number of recommendations that came forward that had to do with Main Street, and a lot of them had to do more with the pedestrian safety of the Main Street environment than necessarily the congestion. And what we agreed to do at one point was to group those into a narrative that said, these are recommendations that could be addressed if there was a downtown City of Bernie master plan. And so I've grouped these together, suggesting that and one of the policy recommendations is that the City of Bernie initiate a downtown master plan process, and that they would consider these things in the context of that master plan. That master plan would also include an analysis, joint analysis between TxDOT and the City of Bernie about whether the City of Bernie should take over the ownership of Main Street.
I will add that I read that a woman was hit by a car on Main Street. Was it last week? Week before last? It was in the police blotter. Bernie Starr reading through, and so just for context, that's It is continuing to be a pedestrian hazard there.
Was she in a crosswalk, just out of curiosity?
It just said something about it said the name of the block, but
You say that as if there's a crosswalk.
Yeah, I know.
They're a little hard to make out. A little pressure spring wouldn't hurt.
Fancy brick papers.
Okay, are y'all good with that approach with those 5 projects?
Yes.
Okay. The next group of projects is something called the State Highway 46 East Roundabout Corridor. And this was an idea that was put forward that one way to slow traffic down and give them the proper cordial introduction to the city of Boerne is to slow them down as they get a little closer, and that with a series of roundabouts, perhaps at State Highway 46 in the woods of Boerne, and another one at 46 in Esperanza, and one at maybe 46 in Herf. And that the narrative says that TxDOT's probably not inclined to do that on a major highway, but that we would at least like to introduce the concept to them and ask them to initiate a study on it.
I believe the other thing we've discussed is that the asymmetry in the traffic loads between some of those cross streets is maybe not ideal for roundabouts there, but I think what you just said is perfect about initiating a study of whether or not these would be a good fit. I certainly like the idea of you driving into Boerne and that's your entrance into the town. It would be a totally unique kind of approach to the town.
Well, and in that regard, I think we also need to look at asymmetry in roundabouts. In other words, have other communities solved for that. It's funny because, you read people's posts online about roundabouts, and some people would say, oh, they're awful, and if you look at where they were, they're horribly designed. So, design matters.
Now, the good roundabouts, you look at the videos on them, they're big. And it's hard to retrofit a big roundabout into a city street. And you can't do it on 55 mile an hour traffic either. It's got to be 20, 25 mile an hour. So Herf Road in there, it's already down to the velocity that would be reasonable. But there's no reason that you couldn't look at some other innovative designs at some of these intersections.
I think just opening the conversation, just explaining what the sort of generic objective is to slow traffic down and, have a little more graceful entrance into the city. And you ask TxDOT, can we do this? And, engineers like their own things, right? I said, we couldn't do that, but we could do this, and pretty soon they're buying into something that would improve it.
Well, one of the first, to me, the first roundabout ought to be at Herf and Old San Antonio, because that's totally away from TxDOT. They don't have any control of that.
I think we have that on the list.
And you do, and it fits. You don't have to buy any more right away. So, and like I say, you better be sure it works.
Okay, if we're good with that?
I got a quick question. 97 says it's 46 in Woods of Boerne. 106 says it's 46 in Woods of Boerne.
I think those were two suggestions. One of them included both intersections and one included just one.
Yeah.
So we included both suggestions here under the same heading.
Seems redundant.
It is. The redundant suggestions. You want to couple them?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
So could I pose a question?
Certainly.
So, one of the things that was coming up on that Adler discussion was, that the city would have to acquire right-of-way for various roundabouts. And it kind of begs the question as to whether we've clarified when we would think it would be appropriate to acquire right-of-way for an intersection improvement. Because, let me give you a hypothetical. There may be scenarios where improving an intersection may reduce or solve the need for an additional roadway. And so you start to get into that cost-benefit analysis about, do we encourage better intersection development with right-of-way acquisition or greenfield roads, essentially. And so I don't know that we've solved for that in policy discussions or giving the city any clarification. I mean, certainly they can make their own value judgments on their own. They have those powers. But I wonder if we should be giving them clarity as to how we think that should be approached. Because it's a political question. It's a tough question, you know. Yes, no?
Well, I think we'd prefer that if there was any right-of-way acquisition, it was to improve intersections, like Bitsy said, the wide nodes, right, concept we've all supported.
Yep.
That, to me, would be the first place you'd go, as opposed to a Greenfield road. If I could rank them, that's what I would do.
So how do we give any, I mean, if that's the feeling that everybody has, I don't know. But if it
Well,
is,
I think there's such a range of considerations. If somebody says, okay, we're trying to fix the traffic problem on this road, we want to look at roundabouts, we want to look at possibly widening the road, we want to look at possibly widening the road and roundabouts. And so usually you have a discrete analysis, a preliminary study that says, you know, you can do 1, 2, or 3. But it depends on the traffic, it depends on the cross traffic, it depends on how many parcels or next, you know, or are you talking about a whole bunch of parcels, a few parcels? And I don't know how I would.
yeah, I guess I was looking at it from a standpoint of, you know, hypothetical situation, just to look at, yes, road widening is also an issue or a scenario where this comes into play, but even if we took an intersection and we said, okay, you're going to potentially impact people on 4 corners, right, with right-of-way acquisition. And you may say, well, by embracing the wide node, you can also achieve the narrow road, so you're actually impacting 4 people instead of a whole street roadway of people.
Right, the question is, so are you solving the problem with the wide node completely?
Right.
Or are you just, is that the first step to the ultimate solution? And so if you do the wide node, and you do that, and then you come back 3 years later, and you say, oh, well, now we need to widen the road. I mean, everybody's saying, well, why didn't you do it to begin with?
I'm starting to feel my hopes of not having that follow-up meeting next week slipping away as we venture further out into this
I don't know, Jeff,
philosophical conversation.
But legitimate conversation, I have to say.
But I think what you'll find out is, like a 4-lane road with nothing stopping it on either end has got tremendous capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the intersections are your problems. So if you were to put a well-designed roundabout that's free flow, then not only is it operating to its capacity, so is the road. So you don't need to be going looking for other roads to build. So it's just you've got to tie all these pieces together. And that's what we need to do.
I think in most cases, what you're going to wind up with is you're looking at probably intersection of two 2-lane roads, and you're probably going to convert at least one of those 2-lane roads to a 3-lane road and have a roundabout.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think the benefit of that 3rd lane is really important.
Yeah, the other thing we put in the report and the policy, et cetera, is, you know, our aversion to Greenfield roads. So, you know, and the focus on the nodes and the roundabouts, I think that's a thread throughout the report and would address, I think, the spirit of what you just said, Ben, is that, hey, fix the intersections. I think it's throughout the report. I didn't think it was unclear. You think it needed to be added?
Well, no, I think we've been clear that that's what our intentions are and how we would like to see the city design and address issues in the near term, et cetera. But it's a matter of, like, Adler Road became the example at this meeting, and that's why it's coming up for me, is that, you know, Jeff, I presume, is assuming, hey, we're probably not going to go seek right-of-way, you know, because it's controversial, because it tends to get backlash. But then there may be a cost-benefit analysis, to your point, that says, wait a minute, if we do this and we solve this right and we make this part of a full integrated network of roundabouts and narrow roads, we resolve the need for say, a green road.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great question. The other part I would throw in there too is not, we're talking roads today, but we've spent a lot of time talking pedestrians and bikeability and everything else. And the difference between able to have a 5-foot sidewalk stuck to the edge of a curb or have a 10-foot shared use path with a 5-foot buffer in between the curb is the difference between a 70-foot right-of-way and a 60-foot right-of-way. And so that's a decision that we'll have to decide when we look at our road
project by
section.
project basis, yeah.
Correct.
Well, one, here lately, I'm looking at the handicapped people. Me. So I've been looking around town, and I'm thinking about getting a little buggy to get around. But you look at certain neighborhoods, yeah, they've got 5-foot wide sidewalks, but they've also got a 3-foot wide concrete mailbox, which leaves 1 foot. So when you're looking at stuff like where do you put the sidewalk, you probably ought to, like where the street I live on, it's got a 3-foot or so band between the curb and the sidewalk, and then the sidewalk. Well, then the mailboxes go in there. So that's one of the things you need to think about, you know, on this stuff. And while I'm talking about old people, let me ask you all a question. And I've been looking about how I'm going to get about town. I know we've got, what is it called, Lyft?
Uber and Lyft.
Yes. Uber's what I'm thinking about. But have anybody in here seemed like I've seen a green van that says it's a taxi cab? There's no taxi cabs in Bernie that I can find except that one I saw. Do any of y'all know anything about that? Because you call ACOG where you're wasting your time. You've got to wait 30 minutes to call them. And they may or may not come out and get you. You don't know. But anyhow, I've been more cognizant of sidewalks and where you go. And
This town isn't
how
a
do you
good
get
town
across
for
Cibolo Creek?
folks in chairs. I can tell you that. This town is not a good town for folks in chairs.
No.
And that's my professional opinion. Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to the trails vision and the accessibility, the need to create a more mobility options in our community. And John's actually experiencing that firsthand because of health complications that keep him from being able to operate a standard vehicle. And so then the question becomes, what then? And he's finding out there's not a lot available even when you look at the ART bus.
It's kind of like a reformed smoker, right?
He's kind of like a reformed smoker.
Well, I tell you what, y'all are safer since I don't drive. It's either me or you.
So I guess going back to my earlier question, do we need to provide some clarity to the city about anything? I mean, just to, this is politically charged, and this committee was partly formed around a politically charged topic, which was, of course, the gateway. And we're saying, we need to solve for not, having to continue doing the wide roads with the wide roads, and the inefficient intersections. We're saying wide nodes, narrow roads, and retrofit the existing infrastructure. Do we need to provide clarity about when we think it's appropriate to acquire right-of-way?
I'll weigh in and agree with Dell. I don't see how anyone could possibly pick up our report and read it and come away with any notion that it's okay to just run willy-nilly and start taking land anywhere for any reason. If we're going to put a roundabout at Plant and Adler, I would think the designers would do everything they could to push the bulk of that roundabout up on city-owned property already, or one landowner's property rather than 11. I just think that's organically going to happen, given public pressures of don't take my property. When I was on council, we shied away from a lot of eminent domain potential confrontations, because they were going to take years and cost tens of thousands of dollars to even go through the exercise. So I don't see a need. I think we're just piling on to do. I just think we're crystal clear in where we come.
Okay.
I would like to,
in my mind,
I'm open-minded to that.
I agree, Bob. I just wanted to ask, I don't know if this is the right place to mention it, but one area that I do have some confusion is Northern sent out the list of thoroughfare projects, and some of those were listed as short-term and some of those were long-term. And if they're on the Bernie thoroughfare plan, what does a short-term project mean on if it's built through the Thoroughfare planning process.
The narrative says that y'all haven't seen. Short-term means that that section of the major thoroughfare plan is within a development that is underway or about to start. It's in some imminent situation.
Okay.
And I put out some examples like Copper Creek and
Tilbury or Regent Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a project on there that I saw that I have some personal interest in that was labeled as short-term that doesn't meet those criteria.
Okay, well, that could be a mistake.
Okay.
Yes, that was part of me sending it to y'all. If y'all find those, let me know.
Okay.
I need second sets of eyes, or like 15 extra sets of eyes on these.
But long-term was when we didn't know when it was going to develop or if it was going to.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
And maybe we ought to take I don't know that the distinction is even relevant.
For thoroughfare projects,
Yeah.
it seemed to me that it didn't make, it kind of goes against the philosophy of how the thoroughfare process works. And so I personally would recommend we remove short and long-term designation from thoroughfare projects. If we support the projects and we want to say we do, that's great. But if we're saying a short-term project that implies something, I don't know, I think that could be interpreted in some ways that we don't intend.
Is it just different wording that we need, like under development agreement?
Or as developed by the developer
I
when
can
the
add that.
project, whatever.
Or as proposed by the developer?
I mean, Jonah, what Don was trying, what I was listening to, the clarification is, it's recognizing it's a done deal. It's happening. It's literally recognizing what's already underway. So to say that's
then that's
put it
to
long
me
term,
that's
I don't-
fine. Then
to
we
me,
could just
it's
say
almost-
we could say already underway or something if we wanted to, or we could say short term. There was just a specific project on there that said short term that I know the people who own it, and they're not developing, and so it surprised me.
Yeah, that would
to
be
see
a mistake.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's a mistake, then I don't have a problem.
I can add an option as far as under the, what did I call it? Project timeframe, project timeframe. I can add another option that's as development occurs. That's not a problem.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Well, or you could just say, instead of saying short-term, underway, or some term like that, and the rest of it just future. In other words, it's on the thoroughfare plan, but it's future.
Okay. Well, congratulations. We got through TxDOT. And we actually improved the major thoroughfare plan. Just a minute, please. Rather than move into the local government projects, I think I'd just ask that you look at those for the next meeting, whenever that's going to be, and see if you have questions, concerns. Northern is working on getting the project sheets that she's been showing us here today for all of these. So I think I'd like to dispense with going over that tonight or this afternoon. But what I do want to say before I call on you, Lance, is to say that I've been working on the report, and it is getting pretty close. We've pulled together a whole bunch of things. Bob and I met with the graphic design folks. They've got some graphics, color scheme, layout, font, things like that. And I'm hoping that at our next meeting, we will be able to present to you a, pre-final version of that you will need to look at. Without many graphics, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 98 pages long, so it's quite a document, but I think that includes the appendices, yeah. But we're working to tighten that down a bit, but I hope y'all will be happy with it. I'd like to present that at the next meeting along with these projects, and then at a subsequent meeting, we'll say that's it, we're going to go. Do y'all have a problem with that schedule? I mean, I think that will let us finish this up in September.
I'll say I also have yet to be created the pedestrian kind of close in that I can, I've got 3 of them.
Is that the one with the 2-mile radius around?
Or what, yeah, 1 mile.
Yeah, 1 mile. Yeah, we need to get that in there.
So I've got a few of them created, but I can get the rest of those created. Not sure, depends on when our next meeting is, if I'll have them ready for the next meeting.
Okay, so let's talk about that. We can meet on the 16th and the 20th, the 6th and the 20th, or we can meet on the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. I think 2 to 3 meetings, we should do it.
I say we just start with the 6th and see where we go.
Yeah, I'll be out that day.
So we'll just go with the 6th,
Okay.
and then we'll assess where we are. Okay. All right, very good.
Tom, one final question. The projects that Northern was kind enough to circulate this week, will we be talking about those again?
If there's some concern, I think the next time you'd see them would be in the body of the report.
Okay. I just have a thought on one, but I can raise that next time.
Well, we have time right now. We're a little bit ahead.
It's the one, it's on page 4, recommendation number 25. It shows Adler Road extension to Esperanza. But if you look at what the city is going to get from the Lookout Group, the Esperanza folks, in terms of right-of-way, you could actually take that all the way around to 46. You could line that up with Cinco Lane on the east and have a connection directly from 46 to Adler. And I talked with Jeff last night after the P&Z meeting. There's a lot of that stretch from Esperanza to Cinco Lane on 46 that the city is going to just get as Esperanza and the Lookout Group develops their property. And so you could then have an additional connection from 46 to Adler to I-10 if you wanted to go north before you go west and east.
You're going to have to explain that to me.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if an exhibit came up, but.
Sorry.
But yes, the Esperanza Development Agreement, so the entire width of Esperanza,
No,
they're
not it.
providing a right-of-way for a future Adler Road extension all the way through Esperanza. And now the Lookout Group has bought the next tract over, Dunenberg, which it would extend that all the way to where that the power station is. So in theory, there is 1 or 2 gaps in there because the Esperanza is made up of a bunch of larger ranches that were put together. But the majority of the right-of-way from Esperanza Boulevard east will be given to the city at one day in the future.
Okay, so let's just say that's Esperanza right there, correct?
Correct.
So going east, you're saying that most of the right-of-way from the western side of Esperanza to 46, there's a right-of-way for Adler?
At one point in the future when
There will be.
Esperanza finishes developing, yes.
So my point is, why not extend that all the way to 46, where Cinco Lane and 46 join is where that kind of Adler Road extension and the bulk of the right-of-way that the city is going to get from the Lookout Group as they develop Esperanza.
Okay.
And that provides another link to 46, eventually to 10, to take some pressure off of the intersection.
Out north of town?
North, yeah, some folks will go north, actually west, to catch 10 to go east.
Yeah.
Because it'll be faster than going down through Herf, Esser, River Road, and 46. And that's the intersection that we've all said has the most pressure anyway. So this would provide some sort of alleviation, mitigation
So
of
it's
that.
not that one.
Not that one. No, not that one.
God bless Northern for trying to find it, though.
I know we've talked about this
We have.
before. I can't remember where, though.
I do recall when I've looked at this before, there are several other properties.
Yeah.
Lookout Group does own a big chunk of it, but there's several, 5 or something.
Yeah, there are about a handful of properties besides the Lookout Group, that's correct.
And I think they're on that power line easement.
Correct.
That's right. And you could follow that power line easement. I mean, it wouldn't be very attractive, but it'd certainly be functional.
So with that understanding, you're suggesting that we add another project?
No,
or
just
expand?
extend this project from Esperanza on the west all the way to 46 on the east.
Okay.
Going through, and I've got a map here, and Jeff can provide a more detailed map, going through the right-of-way that the city is likely to get.
So it would be a major thoroughfare plan project?
Yes, it would be.
Is that what's currently in the thoroughfare plan, Jeff?
No.
It goes beyond.
It goes beyond,
Yeah.
right, because we stopped short now.
Yeah, so my understanding is that all of these projects are existing thoroughfare plan projects that were proposed. Is that correct? The ones that were in Northern's package that she sent out?
Northern, can you
The
quote?
ones that the ones I sent out this week were the ones we discussed at our last meeting that were that fell within the category of major thoroughfare plan, either for the county or for the city. So,
So they didn't together collectively describe the major thoroughfare
No.
plan, but they're major thoroughfare plan type projects.
yes. Mhm.
I believe that's the
Yes.
distinction. Well, I think your suggestion makes sense, but I don't know how the rest of the group feels about it.
Okay.
So if it's done through the major thoroughfare plan, so just for a point of clarification, I asked Jeff this last night, but, at planning and zoning, all these people were saying, oh, well, you guys are looking at running that road from the Trails of Herf, from Ranches at Creekside,
Copper
thank you.
Creek, right.
Copper Creek, and then they were saying, oh, well, then you're going to use, as not eminent domain, what do they say? Come on, man, what's it? Condemnation to take their land to finish that road, to extend that road. But my understanding is that the city does not have the power of condemnation in the ETJ. Is that right or is that wrong? And the reason that's relevant is because once you start playing with thoroughfare plans and, you start throwing that thread out that we'll use condemnation for these county citizens.
I don't really know if the city, certainly the county can. I mean,
Yeah,
this
the
is a
ca-
Kendall
the-
County
the
plan
county
we're
can.
proposing here.
Yeah.
I don't know if the city has that right or not. I mean,
I didn't ask, you asked the question yesterday, and I've never asked the question, so I don't know the answer.
yeah, so, I mean, someone has that, government has that right.
I mean, my understanding is that they can use it for widening roads and that they can use it for right-of-way for improving intersections, but not for extending roads. But I'm not an attorney.
So I don't know
I don't
either.
specialize.
In the county certainly could.
No, I mean, my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but I think condemnation is just a layman's term for eminent domain.
It is.
It
It is.
I don't know that
They were
there's
using
any-
condemnation
That's exactly what
last
it
night,
is.
so I just
Same
wanted to make sure.
concept. Same concept.
But in other words, I mean, that's the only thing is I'm just
That's
poking
what I
out.
was gonna tell you,
That there's concern
condemnation.
about the city, by county residents, there's concern that the city, they don't get to vote for those representatives using those powers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that a lot. Yeah.
Condemnation is where you acquire property through negotiation. If the negotiation fails, then it goes to eminent domain.
Tim, is that the
Carrot and
line you were
stick.
talking about right there?
Yes.
Close to it, yeah, pretty close.
So this was from crowdsourcing. According to what I have, first pass, we included it. Second pass, we removed it from recommendations.
That may have been prior to the time, I mean, the Lookout Group just closed on that additional large tract fairly recently, Jeff. And so that may have been prior to the fact that the city would get additional huge chunk of right-of-way to make that a reality.
I mean, to say that we're going to advocate for this major thoroughfare plan project and not that major thoroughfare plan project, I think doesn't give us any logical basis. It doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're going to say, okay, get thoroughfare plan projects, but you get it only through development, not through eminent domain, and it's not we put all the parameters on there, then I don't see why we wouldn't include this as a major thoroughfare
Yeah,
plan.
I agree.
Well, and that's why I asked that question specifically. It's because, I mean, that's one of the other things too, is we're kind of saying, okay, somebody else decide where to draw these lines. I'm going, well, really? Is that,
Yeah.
is that really what we want? Yeah.
So the proposal's been to add this to the major thoroughfare plan project?
Correct. To take it all the way from, this is number 25, take it all the way from Esperanza around to Highway 46 on the east. And somewhat similar to what Northern showed, I don't think Northern included, I don't think what she had up there included the new tract that Lookout Group just purchased, some 400 some acres. But,
That's the middle part, right?
yeah,
Well-
that'd be part of the middle, that's exactly right.
Would you rather us come back with a separate sheet, Northern and?
Let's see, let me get over there to Esperanza.
And to be clear, is the recommendation that the city add this to the city's thoroughfare plan? What is the recommendation?
Well, that we add it as a project.
I want
As a project.
I'd like to have some clarification. Does the Lookout Group own all of the property to make that happen?
No.
All but 5 parcels. There's 5 other owners involved.
So right here, these.
I would be
Yeah,
against
that's
that.
it.
Yeah.
I would be against that for the same reason that we hear so many complaints about lines on the map. That would just queer all of those folks' home values.
And I mean, if we're including this as a project, this would be the first and only major Greenfield project that this committee is endorsing that I'm aware of without really very much thorough discussion about it. And, you know, I'd like to know more about who those landowners are. And so if to me, that's very different than if we support a thoroughfare plan, you know, this being added to the thoroughfare plan.
I mean, it also compels something to happen across the drought property as well. So I would be not in favor.
I mean, we've already got a Greenfield project right here, and I don't understand the difference. I'm just lengthening it. I'm not saying it's something new. I'm just saying we have the ability to get an extensive amount of right-of-way from a developer just east of this location. Why wouldn't we take advantage of that? This is already a new project. I mean, I don't know the difference.
Is it our project or is it on the thoroughfare plan?
The city's thoroughfare plan, yeah.
Yeah.
And the city's updating its thoroughfare plan, by the way, which likely will include this project, is what I'm trying to tell you.
So which one did the Lookout just acquire? The one where the substation is?
Just, that's right, just up there, that's right, 400 acres just around that substation.
Okay.
Where your cursor is.
Okay.
So I want to point something out. We're at a really interesting inflection point. So this is a big step back, which is simply to say that, okay, if what we're doing is we're saying we recommend a thoroughfare plan, but we're not going to draw the line. Somebody else do it. These are our sort of parameters, sort of not. What typically would happen, I think, would be that a group of people would get together behind closed doors and come up with a plan, and then they'd roll it out to the public, and they'd say, hey, give us a look and give us your feedback. But it's not an iterative process, really, as we know. We've all done these open houses, and it's kind of like, yeah, we got your feedback. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Check the box.
Moving on, check the box. Versus the more transparent opportunity we have here, more people can contribute to the conversation. And I know we're coming up to this, like, I want to wrap this up, man. Come on, man. Put the pencil down, right? But at the same time, it does pose a question as to whether, you know, it feels good to us because we don't have to draw the line, or, you know, because we're saying somebody else gets to do it. But chances are that's going to happen behind closed doors, unless we specify that it shouldn't.
Well, I think transparency is always good. That's why I raised the issue.
I really lean toward transparency.
A legitimate option.
But
It sort of tracks the utility line as shown on the map. So why not at least open it up for discussion? Instead of foreclose it and let, you know, someone else have that discussion later in some closed room like Ben is suggesting.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
My question about it is I was busy trying to find this. When you were talking about extending the line, would you have it come down and touch 46 here, or are we continuing because that's going to add at least 2 more properties that it
Yeah,
will
I mean,
focus?
I'm not the one that would draw the line, but I'm just saying that the new purchase of the Lookout Group of 400 more acres and the extensive right-of-way the city would get as they develop that makes this a viable option, in my opinion, at some point in the future. Given all the other parameters we've been discussing about eminent domain being the last resort and, you know, get this as it develops, which is what Lookout Group is going to do. They're going to develop this property, we're going to get it. Why not take it?
Tim, to be honest, I think it's a bad idea. We're getting ahead of ourselves. The Lookout Group, it's news to some of us here in the last 10 days. Lookout Group's announcing they're buying property. Well, they're not buying it all, they're buying most of it. And the city's going to get it free. So there's too many moving parts, there's too many unknowns, there's too many things that are undecided, and they're going to happen sometime in the future as a natural course of something. And I think we're within sight of publishing a report that avoids that kind of controversy of essentially advocating for greenfield pathways. Because it's not complete. It's almost complete, but it's not complete. And I think the can of worms that it opens for us to say, yeah, let's finish the line through property that we haven't contacted the landowners that we said we would, we're getting off in the weeds.
We also have not thoroughly discussed the request by the public to take those thoroughfare lines off the map if they're in the county. So again, without any kind of understanding about what our position is about that, I think it's premature to actually move forward on something like this.
I hear what you're saying. If both of you guys are saying, I personally have had concerns. Look, I get to be in the room. I'm on the Bernie Mobility Planning Group, but it's not a transparent thing. People are not watching. They're not able to come and say, hey, what are you doing? And then yet what we're doing is we're saying, all right, take it behind closed doors, figure it out, y'all. And here's our guidance. And I don't know. I don't know if that's better.
But don't we have a project along this line already that Northern just showed?
Well, we have a recommendation, and right now, the latest it was rejected.
Oh,
So I don't know that the recommendation exactly mimicked what you said, and that it was related to Lookout Group's property, but there was a recommendation there from the public.
There
And
was.
we've gone both ways on it as a committee.
Well, and I also think that if the goal of that route, I mean, there's elements of it that make sense, but it would result in potentially a much heavier load being routed down Adler, which has a big school zone on it and residences that face the street in places. And then B, we know that the majority of the traffic is going south. And so it'd be creating an alternative route that would dump potentially a bunch of 46 traffic onto Adler. With the hope, it would be targeting the small percentage that are going north. So and obviously, anything I say is going to be tainted because I have personal bias involved in this discussion. But just from the traffic planning perspective, I don't see this as having as big of a reward for the investment that we were talking about, or that maybe we're hoping. Compared to access that brings us, some intersection redesigns or something that really helps and get the bulk of the traffic, which is that morning and evening school and work-related traffic going south.
So, Jeff, what is the status, or do you have a schedule on the major thoroughfare plan adoption, or Ben or Tim?
That would be Jeff.
So our plan right now is to kind of regroup and start again in December, January timeframe. We're completely paused, waiting on this body to finish its report.
Well, I'm fine if we don't want to go down this path, but I'm telling you, we all have discussed that the busiest intersection in this city is Herf, Esser, River Road, and 46. And nothing we really recommend is going to help that in a major way. We're at the margin. We're at the margin. We'll widen the intersection. We'll take some right away from somebody to make a bigger intersection, we hope. We've got to raise the intersection, we're told, because it needs to be 10 feet higher. Now, when that happens, I wouldn't want to be east of 46 because you can't get into town or to 10 through it when they're undergoing construction. But we've done nothing really to do a major improvement of moving traffic east to west across the county. And that's okay. That's the position the committee wants to take. I think it's a little short-sighted, but that's certainly everyone's prerogative.
I have a question about the Esperanza. Will Esperanza have a public road throughout it and entering 46 at all three of these points?
So the Esperanza Boulevard that's there today is a public road.
And will it come curve back around and hit 46 again?
Yeah, so I'm going to call them legs, but
Right.
the other big leg, there'll be another public road that connects at that point. And
This
they'll
one?
go- Actually, the bigger one to the
This
left.
one?
Yeah,
Okay.
there'll be a big road that goes there as well. And then, so what we've seen so far, which they purchased the Dunenberg parcel at the beginning of the year, and so we've just seen some schematics so far. But over by the Esperanza, the substation, there'll be another leg at that location. And all three of those legs will go back and connect to each other
So-
inside the Esperanza Development.
So this is my feeling on this. You're talking about putting a straight road right here, but it sounds like there will be a public road that will accomplish the very same thing. It's just a little curvy. And I love you Texans, but y'all are thinking as a flatlander, whereas I'm from Tennessee, and sometimes you have to drive around mountains and things. And so what you're accomplishing is the very same thing. You would go in on a public road here, and you come out and you find your way across, assuming there's ever this connection.
And Northern also, that road, the Esperanza Parkway currently already exists
Right.
in that area. So the benefit gained from cutting east versus if the Adler cut through was to happen, right now you could cut through and go straight down Esperanza right to 46.
Mm-hmm. And so you would be putting another road,
Across a bunch of properties to save a little bit of distance.
right, a little squiggly line, which if you imagine, as someone from Tennessee, you imagine this is not properties, this is a mountain. You have to go around it to drive around it. So, the difference between a flat line and a curvy, squiggly line. Just my thought.
I don't think we have consensus.
No,
We
that's
can
fine.
vote on it, or we can continue to
Just
think about
continue.
this.
Just continue.
Okay. All right.
Don, do you want me to point out the one that had the long-term, short-term discrepancy, or should I just get with Northern about that?
Go ahead and say which one it is.
It was the one about Bentwood, the two connections of Bentwood that went north through the Herf property and connected to Esperanza.
Okay.
30.
And it said short-term on there, and I just wasn't sure if the,
This one?
yes. If the rule we're following is it's following developments. No, it was,
It was one that went up. It
It had several different arrows on it.
Mhm, This one.
yes.
That one. That would be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or actually, since this is a major thoroughfare plan bucket or whatever, this would be changed to as development occurs.
Right.
So it wouldn't be short-term or long-term. It'd be the new one.
That would be my recommendation.
Did Lance get mad and leave?
We had another appointment,
Okay.
that's why I wanted to speak earlier.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll give him some slack next time. Anything else before we go to public comment? All right. We're at the opportunity for public comment. Anybody on the screen, on Zoom? Ms. McCarthy?
Wanda McCarthy, Ammon Road. As Denise mentioned earlier, I bring attention to the county resolution that voted down the Kendall Gateway Loop and caused the creation of this committee. It occurred due to substantial public opposition of a looping concept across our county, and that was the correct action to take. And as you know, the purpose of this committee is to come up with a transportation plan for the community alternative to the Kendall County Gateway presentation, which was a loop. And I restate your purpose to develop a county off of your resolution. To develop a countywide transportation plan to mitigate current and future traffic congestion in Kendall County in a way that preserves cultural and environmental resources and promotes appropriate economic development. So far, the committee has spent an enormous amount of time addressing small segments or areas that can be improved. And some very necessary and vital issues have been addressed for small and limited sections of mobility, connection, and safety concerns, and I thank you for that and your time in that manner. But the big issue of future traffic on 46 has not been addressed, and I thank Mr. Vanderwolf for bringing that up so clearly. That's a point I've been trying to make for 6 months. One that doesn't include a route, but it addresses the 46 current and future traffic. So the long-range plan to mitigate current and future traffic congestion, the stated purpose of this committee, hasn't been addressed. And in other words, the threat of a loop is still facing all the citizens of this county, the ones that came together and said no. Even though the community spoke strongly and clearly against a loop multiple times, you have not. Several times it has stated at the prior meetings that the committee is neither for nor against the City of Boerne Master Thoroughfare Plan, which you are very aware it has a loop. Although, again, I thank you for your time and your efforts. Thus far, I urge you to not stop here. The conversation on intersections today was great. And I thank you for some of the ideas that you brought up today, and Jonah for saying no and bringing up a comment no to stay away from endorsing Greenfield roads in behalf of the cities pushing their agenda and sticking true to your agenda. But I strongly encourage you to go one more step and vote no as a committee in opposition to all loop concepts for our transportation plan, as the community has conveyed that to be their wish on multiple times, clearly voicing it. And I ask you to clearly voice as a committee that you're opposed to a loop, even that one that is included in the City Master Thoroughfare Plan. And further, I urge and implore that you provide the citizens with a plan, as Mr. Vanderwolf has just said, you don't have yet, that will address the long-range mobility needs of our community and does not include a loop. Because I restate, this was the initial purpose of the committee, and I ask you to please complete your mission before you close your report. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Maxie? Round two.
I just want to say, now that they've brought up the Esperanza stuff, okay, I've got concerns about that, where that last road is coming out to 46. You know what's going to happen. That traffic is, it's going to be bottled up in Boerne, so they're all going to take a left, okay, and head out to 3351 and drive right past my house, and you know how I hate people anyway, okay? If you're going to permit this, okay, since the city of Boerne obviously likes a lot of growth, put a one-way sign there where they have to go through the city of Boerne instead of coming down 3351 and bothering me. So that's my only concern, is all that traffic is going to get rerouted out to other parts of the county, and we don't want the traffic. So I'm just going on record. Thanks.
Thank you, Maxie. Mr. Sinsmeyer. Ms. Gerhart?
Felisa Gerhard, Amon Road. I just want to thank the committee today because of the discussion. And I think a lot of tangents were thought about, of possibilities that could be bad and good. I don't like hearing comments that talk about maybe 5 people, that, it's just a few people there. those are people, and they've been here for a long time. But I really appreciate the discussion today and trying to get to the bottom of what's best and what y'all think is best. I also appreciated the comments in reference to representation in the ETJ in the county and how the city of Bernie, overreaches in these lines that are on the map where they don't have jurisdiction and we're not being represented in the city. And I think that needs to be explored. The question about whether the ETJ has what control the city has over the ETJ is something that I think everybody on this committee and we who live in the county need to know, and the ETJ. So that's another comment that I'd really like to find out the answer to. I've read the annexation law that was passed in 2018, and it's not even very clear. I'm not an attorney, but anyway, I think that's something that we need to find out, because those lines, like I've said so many times, they directly affect people. You are holding people hostage when you put a line on their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhardt. Any additional comments? Milan?
Well, thank you for giving me another opportunity to speak. This time it's for me as a citizen in the county, beyond the ETJ, in the, what's that word I'm looking at? It's not ETJ, it's future ETJ. And that last discussion we had about pieces of property being connected, that large chunk to the right, it's water control and improved district before, that's on my property line. Esperanza, as Bob Manning knows quite well, was a great learning curve for everybody in the city of Bernie, and coincidentally for this county resident. And this is not to do with what you guys are doing, gals are doing, but roads and streets are linked to water districts. I heard mention of Mr. Baki's property, water district number 3. Esperanza was 2. 4 is moving east on 46. So whatever you're doing with the conversations about roads and interjecting other conversations about properties being part of a plan is very, very unsettling. And I do respect the committee position today to stick to what you were doing initially. So again, thank you for the opportunity to give a couple more comments, but water districts, watch out for them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Malone. Any additional comments? All right, if not, we're going to finish at 4:00.
That works.
We're adjourned.